Christian coalition assembled and defeated the Muslim forces at the Battle of Vienna. European history, culture, and tradition was saved, while Islam ceased to remain a threat to the Western world. Vienna is an important historical city located in current-day Austria. It has been the site of numerous conflicts and battles throughout history, most of which took place during the European Renaissance. This was mainly due to Vienna being an extremely strategic city in Europe. It was considered the gateway into mainland Europe from the Balkans, especially from the point of the Middle East. Historically, the city of Vienna has been a very important objective of the Ottoman Empire. This has been shown to be true time and time again throughout history. For example, in 1529, the Ottomans engaged in a siege on Vienna in an attempt to capture the city. This siege ultimately ended in failure, and the Ottoman forces had no choice but to withdraw. By 1683, Vienna was a site of extreme civil unrest. The Black Death was raging within the city, and to the southeast the Balkans were a site of major political turmoil, mainly as a result of Ottoman control at the time. Vienna was located within the Holy Roman Empire, under Emperor Leopold I. By Ottoman standards, no time could have been better to attempt to capture Vienna. At this time, the Ottoman Empire was at its peak in power. It was up to a final clash between ideologies to determine Europe's fate. In 1683, Sultan Mehmed IV, leader of the Ottoman Empire, ordered the capture of Vienna. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha was chosen to lead the Muslim forces in this undertaking. Emperor Leopold I and his main associates fled the city when he learned of the intent of his rival, leaving behind a garrison of 15,000 men, led by Count Ernst Rudiger von Starhemberg. Word got out to most European nations, but only one independent nation rushed to help, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Only Polish forces took part in the eventual battle, due to the Lithuanian forces being rerouted. The eventual Christian relief force created in order to relieve the Viennese garrison consisted mainly of heavy Polish cavalry known as winged hussars. These elite Polish units were known and feared all over Europe for their repeated success and effectiveness. The main Ottoman army finally laid siege to Vienna on 14 July. On the same day, Kara Mustafa sent the traditional demand for surrender to the city. However, the Viennese garrison refused to capitulate. In a month, the Ottoman siege went into full effect. It cut virtually every means of food supply into Vienna. Fatigue became so common that von Starhemberg ordered any soldier found asleep on watch to be shot. Increasingly desperate, the forces holding at Vienna were on their last legs when, in August, imperial forces under Charles V, Duke of Lorraine, defeated Thockley at Beisenberg, 5 kilometers northwest of Vienna. The relief army had to act quickly to save the city and prevent another long siege. Despite the binational composition of the army and the short space of only 6 days, an effective leadership structure was established, centered on the King of Poland, King John III Sobieski, and his winged hussars. This Christian coalition settled the issues of payment by using all available funds from the government, loans from several wealthy bankers and noblemen, and sums of money from the Pope. Also, the Habsburgs and Poles agreed that the Polish government would pay for its own troops while still in Poland, but that the emperor would pay them once they crossed into imperial territory. Kara Mustafa was, in turn, much less effective at ensuring the motivation and loyalty of his forces, and in preparing for the expected relief army attack. By the 12th of September of 1683, the Viennese garrison had endured around 2 months of continued Ottoman siege. They desperately awaited the arrival of the relief force, commonly known as the Christian Coalition, and officially known as the Holy League. The battle started before all units were fully deployed. At 4 a.m. on 12 September 1683, the Ottomans attacked, seeking to interfere with the deployment of Holy League troops. The Germans were the first to strike back. Charles of Lorraine moved forward with the imperial army on the left and other imperial forces on the center, and after heavy fighting and multiple Ottoman counterattacks, took several key positions, especially the fortified villages of Neusdorf and Heigenstadt. By noon, the imperial army had already severely mauled the Ottomans and come close to a breakthrough. Though shattered, the Ottoman army did not crumble at that moment. In the early afternoon, a large battle started on the other side of the battlefield as the Polish infantry advanced on the Ottoman right flank. Instead of concentrating on the battle with the relief army, the Ottomans continued their efforts to force their way into the city. That meant the Poles could make good progress, and by 4 p.m. they had taken the village of Gertsov, which would serve as a base for their massive cavalry charge. The Ottomans were in a desperate position between Polish and Imperial forces. Charles of Lorraine and John III Sobieski both decided, on their own, to continue the offensive and finish off the enemy. The Imperial forces resumed the offensive on the left front at 3:30 p.m. At first they encountered fierce resistance and were stopped. This did not last long, however, and by 5 p.m. they had made further gains and taken a few villages. They were now very close to the central Ottoman position. As they were preparing to storm it, they could see the Polish cavalry in action. It is recorded that the Polish cavalry slowly emerged from the forest to the cheers of the onlooking infantry, which had been anticipating their arrival. At 4 o'clock p.m., the hussars first entered into action, battering the Ottoman lines and approaching the center group, which was now threatened from 3 sides: the Poles from the west, the Saxons and the Bavarians from the northwest, and the Austrians from the north. At that point, the Ottoman vizier decided to leave his position and retreat to the headquarters in the main camp further south. However, by then many Ottomans were already leaving the battlefield. The Holy League was now ready for the last blow. At around 6 p.m., the Polish king ordered the cavalry attack in 4 groups, 3 Polish and 1 from the Holy Roman Empire. 18,000 horsemen charged down the hills near Kahlenberg Mountain, the largest known cavalry charge in history. Sobieski led the charge at the head of 3,000 Polish heavy lancers, the famed winged hussars. The charge easily broke the lines of the Ottomans, who were exhausted and demoralized and soon started to flee the battlefield. The cavalry headed straight for the Ottoman camps and Kara Mustafa's headquarters, while the remaining Viennese garrison sailed out of its defenses to join in on the assault. Less than 3 hours after the cavalry attack, the Christian forces had won the battle and saved Vienna. Afterwards, Sobieski paraphrased Julius Caesar's famous quotation, Veni, Vidi, Vici, by saying, "I came, I saw, God conquered." This battle has been described as an enormous defeat and failure for the Ottoman Empire, the most disastrous since the foundation of Ottoman statehood in 1299. The Ottomans lost at least 20,000 men during the siege, while their losses during the battle with Sobieski's forces amounted to around 15,000 dead. Casualties of the Allied relief force under Sobieski's command were much smaller, amounting to approximately 3,500 dead and wounded, including 1,300 Poles. The Viennese garrison and the civilian populace lost, due to all causes, amounted to about half of their initial number during the siege. The Holy League troops and the Viennese took a large amount of loot from the Ottoman army, which Sobieski vividly described in a letter to his wife a few days after the battle.
Ours are treasures unheard of, tents, sheep, cattle, and no small number of camels. It is victory as nobody has ever knew before. The enemy now completely ruined, everything lost for them. They must run to their sheer lives. General Straumenberg hugged and kissed me and called me his savior.
All remaining Ottoman forces in Europe were repelled. The stance of Christianity was reaffirmed in Europe, and the Ottoman Empire was no longer a threat. Poland received heavy praise for King Sobieski's success. Kara Mustafa was executed by the Ottoman elites for his failure, and the Ottoman Empire descended ever so slowly into internal decay and turmoil for the following centuries. This battle did indeed mark the beginning of the end of the Ottoman Empire.